Hi, I'm Sami, and this is the Career Kickstart Show. I'm excited because I have Kristina Csanaky on my show today, a career-changing UX designer based out of good old London, England. Now, Kristina, you are not just a UX designer, you're not just a career changer, but you have done a lot of interesting things because I'm not going to spoil everything, but you kind of come from HR, you've had a very international career, studied in Budapest and things like that. But how about, before I spoil everybody, how about you introduce yourself to us? Tell us a little bit about Kristina Csanaky.
Hi, Sami. Thanks for having me here. Yeah, so I do have an international career. Originally, I'm from Hungary, and then I moved to Germany just for a while. That was for 6 months. And then after that, I moved to India for a year, where I worked for a startup, for a small consulting business, and I worked in HR and project management. And then I moved to London. And pretty much from the beginning, I've been working in HR here. I joined, it was a startup then, and I joined a small business as their HR manager, their head of HR. It was in the translation and localization sector, and I worked there for 7 years. And because this was a small startup, I was pretty much given an empty canvas to build something up from the ground. And being in HR, my role was pretty much focused on designing experiences for employees, but not only for employees, but everyone who basically interacted with the business in any way, be a candidate or customers.
Here's the thing that I got to point out, because I love how an English accent says HR. Could you say HR again?
HR.
Yes,
HR.
I love it. Okay, I have one of my friends who's in HR. She's another career coach. She's from the UK, and every time we're in a call, I'm just in anticipation for her to say HR again. I just love it. I love it. I'm sorry, I sounded so excited about that, but I love it. I love it. So, Kristina, you've done a lot of interesting things. Now, let's go back into the past and just kind of go back to your schooling. So you originally went to business school. What really brought you into HR? What drew you to HR?
So I wanted to get into HR and training because I think that is a meaningful way, to contribute to people's lives and to their career. I don't think I have to explain this to you, how important this is. So I think we are pretty much on the same page on this. And yeah, it was very exciting to be a part of a small business and, help the business grow from an internal position and from an internal role.
What do you think, if we're thinking about the similarities between HR and UX, what would you say some of the similarities are?
I think the people aspect, definitely, and that is the strongest connection. I think in HR, I pretty much worked on, between the employees and the business. My role was to understand the people and understand the business and align their needs and develop a solution that met the needs of both sides. So it's pretty much like an intermediary role between the people and the business.
Okay, so when you're working with sort of, it looks like with a lot of what you've done has been really focused on people and just kind of working with them. Have you kind of had some lessons from HR that kind of help you with understanding with UX, because it's all about empathy and stuff like that? Have there been any transferable lessons from HR into UX?
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the most important things I could transfer from my old career was a problem solving and thinking in systems, basically. Understanding how the small pieces work together and create something bigger, and how changes in certain parts of the system affect other parts of the system or the system as a whole. And I think on like a daily operations of an HR field or function, I think facilitating like discussions and training sessions or idea generating workshops, or even like, bringing stakeholders together is pretty much, it is very much something that I can bring over from HR. And then I think also the research skills, quantitative and qualitative research skills, because we have done a lot of surveys. I've conducted plenty of interviews, and I think just generally a curiosity and a desire to understand people and help them in a way.
And your desire to help people has really taken you all over the world. You were working for Deutsche Telekom. You were, you were working doing leadership training in Hungary. You of course, were in India. Then, of course, now in the UK. How does it feel to like be working with these different cultures? Because doing HR, working, as a manager, you really have to like, deal with not just the usual things when you're doing HR, but you're also dealing with maybe the differences in culture. How do you feel like, how have you navigated those different, cultural nuances? Because, there's a big difference between the culture in India as opposed to Germany, as opposed to the UK. Like, how did you like get your mind around all that?
Yeah, that's a tough question. I mean, that was exactly why I wanted to build an international career, because I wanted to understand the different point of view and different point of views, and understand how people in different cultures see and experience life in general. So I was actually in Germany when I decided that I wanted to move to India, because I wanted to experience the complete opposite of the German lifestyle. And then what I really like about London is that it is very diverse, and you can, you get on the tube or a bus, and then, you meet so many different kind of people. So I think it's very important to have that sort of curiosity and motivation to understand people and see things, through their eyes and talk to them.
Yeah, and you're also in, London. So if you're ever missing Indian food, you can always go down to Brick Lane and, check out all the curry places.
Exactly. One of the perks of living in London, yeah.
Yeah, the whole world really comes to London. So you've been doing, with the HR and everything, let's kind of switch gears and talk about how you decided UX was for you. Like, did you have like a moment, or was it like a gradual understanding?
It was gradual, because it wasn't an easy decision. I think at first I just started noticing that, my interest shifted a little bit. I mean, I had a really rewarding career, and I really enjoyed my work for a really long time. But then I realized that something was missing. And that bit was technology. I was really curious about technology, and I just couldn't really bring it to my role in HR. And then I started to think about what kind of problems I want to solve in my new role, or in a different career. And I was pretty sure that I wanted to be in a position where I can influence people's life in a positive way, and I can empower them in any way, but maybe not from a position that is internal to the business, but more from a role that is externally facing and is more on the product side. So yeah, I started thinking about what kind of roles are out there where you can combine people with technology, with research and analysis and creativity. And when you start researching these things, the ads just keep finding you. And I started receiving these UX ads, and I was like, okay, maybe this is something that I should look into. And I got really excited about it early on, but it took me a while to convince myself to sort of give up or almost like throw away a career that I spent almost 10 years building. So that was a tough decision, and I had to get used to the thought.
Yeah, I bet it was tough because, because for people who might, not have checked out your LinkedIn or anything, you were the global head of people, you've done management. So having to start off at the lower part of the totem pole is one of those things a lot of career changers fear. Like, was there something that you had to do to like pep yourself up or like prove to yourself, hey, I can do it? Because obviously, spoiler alert, she did do it. She's working as a voice UX designer. So, it all paid off in the end, folks. But like, was there like a dark night of the soul where you're just like, sitting in your flat, eating your curry from Brick Lane, being like, I got to change things up?
Yeah, I mean, it was difficult, and there were definitely dark moments, but I found it really encouraging that I saw people moving into UX from different walks of life. So there is a diversity in backgrounds that I found really interesting, and it shows that people are curious and they're interesting, exciting people in this area. So that was definitely encouraging. But yeah, at first I just thought that this was a completely crazy idea, that the shift was just too big and I would have to give up way too much. I mean, and bear in mind that, if someone is 7 or 10 years in their career, at 10 years with including education, that's really a time when you get headhunted, when you move into, a director position, when people start having families and, buy houses. And that was the time when, everyone did that around me, and I was just throwing it all away and started something almost from scratch. So yeah, that was definitely a difficult period and a difficult decision.
Oh, you little rebel, you saw everybody getting their white picket fences and moving out to the suburbs and not being able to come back into the city with their kids. And you were like, nope, I'm going to run off and be a groovy UX designer. Enjoy your babies.
Yeah.
And I can definitely understand that, because I've done a career change myself. Like, we all need to kind of like shake things up. And the cool thing is that with HR and UX, there's actually some transferable skills. Like, they're having more people what they call employee experience. Folks are pretty much using UX principles, not like, of course, the visual stuff, but to create better environments for retention and culture fit and everything in their company. So, that is one of those things for anybody who's listening, who is in maybe HR, who's been thinking about this. Keep in mind that you can throw the baby out with the bathwater, or you can keep some of the bathwater and the baby. Maybe that's not the best metaphor, but you get what I mean. But you were just like, nope, closing the book, doing something new. So how about you tell me a little bit about, because you have been in this position since last year, the one that you currently have.
Yeah.
What suggestions would you give to folks who are like you, maybe thinking about a boot camp, not sure how they might make it work? How did you make, doing this sort of career change? Because tech boot camps are intensive programs. How did you make this change for yourself? Or, how I guess, tell me a little bit more about your experience when you're in the boot camp making it work, and then how you were kind of like job hunting after that.
Yeah. So I really knew that I had to change things around. So it was a big change, and I had to upskill myself for this, because my background was not in technology. So I knew that I had to invest time and energy and money into a boot camp. But I did my research, and I wasn't ready to sort of quit my job just like that and then go into a full-time course. So I was looking for part-time options and online ones, and I've been doing quite a lot of online courses by then, but those were just like these small courses which were really helpful, but I just felt that they weren't sufficient for a career change that I needed to do. So I was looking for longer courses that I could do part-time, and this is how I came across Career Foundry, and it basically allowed me to keep my old job, working on my future, on my new role, and because this was a longer course, it gave me more time to sort of immerse myself. I had more days of that I could read, I could listen to podcasts. So it just I could build up the sort of knowledge and experience that helped me get started. And because I studied part-time, I planned some time away from work as well. So I went to travel for 2 months while I was working at the very on the final modules of my course. So I did get my break as well, and I could get into the job hunt with like a more optimistic and refreshed mindset, and that was very important as well.
Yeah, well, that's one of those things people don't think about, is that when you're doing any sort of intensive educational program, it doesn't matter if it's a university or a boot camp, the systems and the time management that you're kind of creating for yourself, it can't just be all about your coursework. It also has to make sure that you are refilling your own well of energy, or else you can burn out. And by the time you graduate, you're ready just to like sleep on the couch for months, because you're so worn out. So it sounds like you did some good stuff by making sure that you were, studying extracurricularly, making sure that you were really gathering the information to make sure, is this right for you? Investing in a program that could give you the more formalized structure that you needed, and then making sure that when you got out on the job plant, you had a good vibe, you had a good energy. Maybe you had a bit of a tan from your holiday, so you're ready to go.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the mental aspect of a career change is very much overlooked. I mean, you read about it, but it's just so easy to consider this something as a secondary to the whole, technical knowledge and expertise that you have to build up to be able to compete in this field. But you just can't ignore that, because in between two careers you end up in a weird place where your old self is a distant memory, and then the new one feels strange, and then you just have to like step into that role and prepare yourself mentally and look after yourself. That is very important.
Thank you for saying that. I love it when career changers say that, because that is usually the hardest part for me when working with a client, is to get them to understand that this is mental. Like, even when you think about athletes, like whether they're in football or they're an Olympic athlete, when they have coaches, their coaches don't just do like, hey, do 50 push-ups and run. Like, they're working on visualization. They're working on meditation. Like, people don't understand when you're making audacious dreams, when you're going for goals that, other people don't understand because they're not ready to, throw it to the wind and seeing where it lands. You have to have your mental game on point, because when you're going into an interview, vibe, I know that sounds like such a hippy dippy sort of term, but like that vibe does matter. So being able to go like you did, where you have that fun, post vacation glow, like that can certainly help, especially if you're not going into these interviews with a chip on your shoulder or being all like discouraged or desperate. You got to have that good loose vibe, and that happens only when you work on your mindset.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, let's kind of talk about, we've talked about how, you did in the course and everything. Let's chat a little bit about, how your job hunt went, because it went well, but what were some things that you thought in your job hunt really helped, really push the dial, had some good impact? Could you share some of that?
Yeah. So I think this job hunt was the hardest thing I've done in my life, and I mean I've heard stories, where people were like really fighting for months, and it was difficult for them. And then on the other end of the scale, you hear stories where people, I don't know, send out one CV, and then get an interview, and then they really get the first job. So there is everything between the two ends. And I think mine was leaning towards the more difficult end. So I applied for a lot of jobs, but I was successful because I got interviews as well. So I went on. I went on all the interviews that I was invited to, just to go to gain experience, and to tell my story, and just to learn. You can learn a lot from these interviews as well, and get to know people.
Yeah, so it sounds like putting yourself out there and being willing to just engage with other people just really helped across the board.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really important, I think, to meet people face to face, to go to networking events, go to meetups, because you learn a lot, not just technical knowledge, but also other stories and people's experiences. So you have to work hard on creating opportunities for yourself.
It's interesting that you're saying that the job hunt was so challenging for you, since you come from HR. Do you feel like your HR background was an advantage, or did it not prepare you as much as you thought?
It's a yes and no. I think it prepared me because I knew how difficult it can be to sit on the other side of the table. I was able to approach the situation as two people having a conversation about career, and I wasn't too nervous about going to the interviews, because I went in there with a mindset that it's two equal parties talking to each other. But because the shift was so big and I didn't have a background in tech before, I think that was just a big gap to bridge.
Well, you managed to bridge that gap quite well, like a little engineer, because you're doing voice design. Now, what do you like the most about voice design? Because I got to say that my family loves voice design, and they're always yelling at Siri. Like, I have two nieces and nephews who talk to Siri all the time. They're like, Siri, play Paw Patrol. Like, they're always like, now Siri can understand them. But I am not the person who wants to have a conversation with my phone unless there's a human on the other end. So I very much think voice design is the future. It's not my future. Maybe I'll be on board later on, but what do you like about voice design?
It is such an exciting field. It's a growing field, and to be honest, at the moment I started my training in UX, I knew that this is going to be big, and I wanted to be a part of it. I didn't know how. I just knew I wanted to be a part of it, and I'm really lucky that it was part of my education as well, and it definitely helped. But yeah, I think this is a new and exciting frontier of interacting with technology, and in a way it is so natural, because that's the most natural way we can communicate. It's through our voice, and then how we make sure that the technology is or the solutions that we develop are also are just as natural. I think this is a bit of an uncharted territory, and things are changing on a daily basis. So yeah, it's very exciting to be a part of this change.
Well, that is fantastic. I like knowing that I got smart people like you who are working on this, because I don't know if it's because of my accent, which you may have noticed. Like, I have some friends who are from like England or Europe, and they get a crack out of me like speaking, especially if maybe if I've had some wine, because they're like, "You sound like George Bush. You're so country," and I'm like, "Shut up, y'all." You know. So Siri doesn't always understand me, and I think that's why I have a problem with her. I'm just like, you'll talk to the babies, but you will not talk to me. So I'm glad that you're working on this solution. So hopefully one day these voice designs can understand a country accent. No.
Yeah, they definitely will. Yeah.
Well, if you ever need some down home country fried voice samples, let me know.
Yeah, definitely.
I can record something on my porch. So, Kristina, thank you so much for being on my show. This has been a lovely chat. Now, we're going to have to, end the interview, but if there's any advice, or if you want, to let people know about, any cool thing that you're doing on the web, just, do a shout out. Like, you can have your moment of free speech at the end of the episode.
Yeah, well, there's just one thing that that basically helped me a lot when I was feeling down, and I just kept telling myself that difficult times don't last forever, dark times don't last forever, and that your future self will surprise you, and if you, I don't know, this time next year maybe you will be really surprised at how far you have come. So I think that's an important thought for everyone to consider, who is maybe going through a difficult time and always in between two careers.
Oh, that is good advice. That is so true. It's one of those things where it always feels like such a slog when you're in it, but it's just like a marathon or a race or a good workout. After you're done, you got that endorphins, you've reached your goal, and you feel like a god. You're like, I'm a UX
exactly.
god. When you finally get that job after you graduate from a boot camp. So thank you so much again, Kristina, for being on my show. It's been delightful.
Oh, thank you for the opportunity, Sami. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Awesome. Well, and for everybody who's listening, thank you again for tuning into the show. As always, I'm Sami Gardner, your career specialist. Have a good one. Bye.
Change your career, change your life at CareerKickstartAcademy.com.